everybody? It is Saturday, February 11th, 2023, and I'm back home in Wales. But yeah, I've been away from the podcast for a couple of days, but I'm back now, and Clark, Kobe, Anthony, and Chaos have done a great job over the last few days while I've been away, but I am back now for today's episode. And damn, is it a stacked episode. But first, let me introduce you. I basically just introduced them, but I'll introduce them once again. The co-hosts for today. And let's kick it off first with Kobe. How are you, Kobe?
Not too bad. We had some breaking news, breaking news over in the world of New Japan, as well as SmackDown's events, and we'll obviously get into it. So.
Absolutely, we will. And also today we're joined by Clark Taylor. How are you, Clark?
Always fired up to be here. We got UFC on tap tonight. We've had a sick week in wrestling. We got the Super Bowl, and my Kansas City Chiefs are in it against Anthony's Eagles. Monster shout out to Chaos all week, hanging with me and Kobe and Anthony on the show. That was a blast. Stoked to be back once again. I will be off tomorrow, but today I'm here. And I'm happy to be here. No doubt about it.
It's going to be a great, great show. And finally, today we're joined by the head of Opinion Show Wrestling Republic, Anthony Ricciardi. How are you, Anthony?
I'm doing well. It's the third time I'm on, and I'll be, off till Thursday. But, it'll be fun to talk about these topics tonight or today.
Absolutely, yeah. And we've got some big topics to get into. First of all, the big news that came out today. Jay White lost to Hikuleo today at New Japan Pro Wrestling New Beginning in Osaka in a loser leaves Japan match. During the post-show press conference, Jay White said his goodbyes to Japan and confirmed he is done in Japan, as you know, the name of the match entailed. He then went on to build up his next scheduled match, which is at New Japan Pro Wrestling of America, Battle of the Valley next week in California, and said that maybe if he beats Eddie Kingston next week, Gato could join him in America and the two could take over New Japan Pro Wrestling strong. However, if we're being real about it, is it likely New Japan are going to pay his contract just for him to be on their American shows? Unlikely. But yeah, Jay White's New Japan Pro Wrestling contract expires later this month, and it is unlikely that New Japan Pro Wrestling would be able to afford him just for US appearances alone. So, in my mind, I see three possible options for Jay White going forward. Option 1. Tony Khan has already stated that New Japan Pro Wrestling will be involved in the relaunch of Ring of Honor. So perhaps Jay White could work ROH and New Japan of America, with both companies sharing the cost. However, with this said, this would be undoubtedly the least lucrative deal for Jay White if he were to choose it. Option 2, Jay White goes to AEW. Now, this is going to be a hot take, but to me, this is actually the least likely option. I don't think Jay White's slow and methodical style would get over in AEW. And it's just, AEW is a very fast-paced promotion, and I just don't see him working there, really. He needs a lot of time on the mic. He needs a lot of time in the ring, and I just don't think he would get it there. And I think he could well get lost in the shuffle. Option 3, Jay White goes to WWE. Ever since Jay White came back from Excursion in 2017, I've said he would be perfect for WWE. His in-ring style shares a lot of similarities with top WWE guys from over the years. WWE is undoubtedly the place where wrestlers get the most promo time in wrestling nowadays, and we all know Jay White's promo ability is unmatched. Him in WWE is a perfect match in my personal opinion. But yeah, what do you guys think? I'll start with you first, Clark.
It's so funny, and I've said this kind of before. If you asked us this question off the heels of Forbidden Door last year, I mean, almost a full year ago, not quite, but almost now, which is weird to even say, but the answer would have been AEW. And now, not 9 months later, I'm on the same page as you. Boy, has my opinion changed. AEW doesn't make a lot of sense for Jay White. It doesn't. And I'm in agreement with you on him working in WWE. I actually see, it's funny, in Jay White, with some of the strengths of his that you mentioned, and obviously he's shorter with the build and his ability to go bell to bell the way he can and work rate wise, but the slightly slower style. I see a lot of Randy Orton in Jay White. And I'm not saying that he is Randy Orton or they're the same at all. Randy Orton's 6'4", Jay White's not 6'4". They're two different performers, but there's a place there, I think, for a guy that works Jay White's style, and with Orton out right now, Jay White to fill that kind of void of the calculated heel maybe would be, I think, outstanding, and I'd be excited to see that. WWE makes the most sense to me.
And of course, Randy Orton is getting older as well, so hopefully he will return. But when he does return, he's probably not got that many years left in him, whereas Jay White is very young, so he absolutely would be. And to me, I think there's an argument he's ready straight away for the main roster. What do you think about all of this, Anthony?
I mean, Jay White is somebody, the first time I saw him was in Ring of Honor when he was doing the excursion, and it was a completely different Jay White. And I even wrote about it a while ago, and I think I referred to Jay White as the Walter White of professional wrestling, in that he changed such as a character, and his work in New Japan has been phenomenal. And I know months ago there was a rumor that said, oh, he's going to be in the Rumble. And I remember thinking at the time going, yeah, I don't see that. And obviously he wasn't in the Rumble, but it appears that he's done with New Japan. I don't see him going to AEW. It's already in a stacked roster. And I agree. I don't think he would fit that mold that AEW goes for. Honestly, a Ring of Honor New Japan mix would really be below him at this point. I think he's too good of a talent to be wasted there. I think WWE would probably be the most logical. And one of the things I said to Kobe earlier was, it would not shock me if he is WWE bound. I don't see him going to NXT. I don't see Hunter putting him in NXT. I think he's too good of a talent, and he really doesn't need that right now. He doesn't need NXT. I wouldn't be shocked. What if he shows up on the Raw after Mania? Because that crowd is completely different than the normal Raw crowd. That crowd's full of essentially smarks, 99% of it. And I feel like if the crowd responds, that being a big deal, because again, most of that audience knows more than just WWE, will know he's a big deal. That will come across, or should, on TV for fans that don't really know who he is. Okay, they popped for him huge. This guy is a big deal. I think he goes to WWE. I could easily see him with Seth. I know Seth's like the go-to for anybody coming in. Cody's a possibility. Does he confront Cody after Cody wins the title? Is that his first feud? I mean, there's a number of people you could do with Jay, and I think Jay could have a great match with pretty much anybody. So I would look forward to a Jay White WWE run, especially with Triple H in charge.
Yeah, I think your point there, but the Raw after Mania, I think you're probably bang on there. And also, I'm gonna have to give Clark credit as well, as Clark did call that on the podcast last month actually, about Jay White being on the Raw after Mania. But your point about the fact that that is a more than your usual Raw, at least hardcore wrestling fan base, the Raw after Mania. So it would be the perfect time for him to get a big pop and to just have him debut. And I think that a lot of people are speculating that perhaps you could see something similar to Cody Rhodes last year at WrestleMania, where Jay White debuts at WrestleMania. Even though I don't think he needs NXT, I also at the same time don't think he's somebody who can debut at WrestleMania. I think debuting him on an episode of Raw or a weekly show, I think that's the best way you can go about it. But what do you think, Kobe?
I mean, I feel like this is part of the things. Is like we've had 3 takes on this already, so I got to try to say something that hasn't been said already. So I 100% agree with the statement that his style is that methodical. He's not going to like. That's the thing. You had the 2 matches at Wrestle Kingdom. You had Kenny Omega and Ospreay as a tremendous match, Wrestling Republic's first 5-star of this year, and then you had Okada and Jay White, and both matches were really good, but for way different reasons. Omega and Ospreay did a lot more in their match. Okada and Ospreay told a different story. Or not Ospreay. Okada and Jay White told a different story. They were a lot slower. You had a lot of just spots. Like there was often so many switchblade, or no, not switchblade, Blade Runner reversals. At the end of the day, his style is gonna fit in WWE. You put Jay White in the ring in an AEW ring. And we've seen it at Forbidden Door and a couple, like, I think he faced Trent. I didn't watch that match either. But he's going to wrestle a style that is going to require more time. If you're, like, a Jay White match is going to evolve slower. At the end of the day, you can't have an 8-minute Jay White match and have it be as effective as an 8-minute Rey Fenix Dante Martin match. You're going to have the crowd on their feet for a Rey Fenix Dante Martin match because they're going to do a lot of athletic stuff. Jay White is the methodical. He's going to do work holds. He's going to focus on a body part. He's going to do more of that. This requires more time in the ring. And I 100% agree with the statement that him at WrestleMania doesn't make sense unless you had a massive faction and debuted him with some legend, or like if you put him with a Shawn Michaels or something, maybe. But at the end of the day, I don't see that at all. I don't think he's gonna have the AJ Styles effect. We saw AJ debut in the Rumble. He got a phenomenal pop, and then Raw after WrestleMania, he was a top star the week he showed up. Jay White is not going to be as effective in that position. Yes, he has the potential to get a massive pop, but you're going to have to work a lot harder to get Jay White over with the fan base in general.
In all fairness, AJ Styles in his situation, obviously he was around longer than Jay White, more prominently on TV with TNA for many years. And he debuted in Orlando, which is the home base of TNA. So that hugely was a major factor in that.
Yeah, great point. And I mean, yeah, AJ Styles had also been in the industry for quite a few more years as well. And of course, TNA was a lot more popular when he was on it. Then he went over to New Japan, so he'd already interacted with quite a few different areas of the fan base. I mean, I guess you can say the same with Jay White, considering he appeared in AEW, but it wasn't a long-term thing. But yes, the fan base who know about Japanese wrestling know about him. The rest of it, not so much. So yeah, it is likely that you're not going to get quite as big of a pop for him. Now, Soul is asking, what happens to Bullet Club? And that is a fantastic question. That is the $1 million question. However, the fact is, Bullet Club in Japan has been a mess now for the last 2 years. So honestly, them losing Jay White, it's just going to be a thing of, House of Torture are going to be the faces of Bullet Club, I think, and it's going to go more in that direction. I don't think it's going to make a huge difference, but Bullet Club is an absolute mess where I'd almost just end it and bring it back in a few years at this point, because it's the roots of it, where it was originally meant to be, pretty much all non-Japanese talent in Japan. It's now become basically all Japanese talent in Japan.
I think the only two non-Japanese talent you can consider in the Bullet Club is the tag team from Impact of Chris Bay and Ace Austin, which they had that great run. Oh, well, yeah, you could say the Fale.
Yeah. And I mean, now what Fale is currently doing, and this just proves how much of a mess Bullet Club is. Fale's creating his own Australian Bullet Club, where he's just getting people. So I think he's had like 5 members.
Oh, and then Chase Owens.
Yeah. And I forgot. See, I've always forgotten about Chase Owens. I feel bad for Chase Owens. You just always forget about him. But yeah, no, it's a really messy situation right now, where you got the Australian Bullet Club the Japanese Bullet Club, and then it's been House of Torture and Jay White's Bullet Club as well. It's just been a complete mess. There's no continuity with it since. Honestly, everyone at the time was saying the Elite was ruining the Bullet Club, and I think to a degree, yes, it was more putting over the Elite than putting over the Bullet Club, but still, at least it made sense then. Since then, it's just gone awful. But of course, nothing's anywhere near the level of when we originally had Prince Devitt and AJ Styles there. But now, moving on to SmackDown. And more specifically, the future of Jey Uso. Not Jay White, Jey Uso. There's too many J's now in wrestling. But SmackDown last night started with a Paul Heyman promo. Heyman was holding both WWE Championship belts, but Roman Reigns was nowhere to be seen. Sami Zayn then interrupted Heyman and cut a promo about how the Bloodline was falling apart, and since he's left, they've not all been together, claiming they all know that Reigns' title reign is coming to an end in 8 days against Zayn in Montreal. That was a great opening segment, and then throughout the first hour of the show, Jimmy kept phoning Jay and just got no reply over and over again. Jimmy Uso then entered alone to the tag team title match, but Jey Uso came out from the crowd just before the bell rang to help Jimmy defeat Braun Strowman and Ricochet to retain the tag team titles. After the match, Jey told Jimmy that he will always be there for him, but he wasn't sure yet if he will remain in the Bloodline. Sami Zayn stopped Jey Uso before he left the arena and tried convincing him not to rejoin the Bloodline. And then before leaving, Sami Zayn said that he acknowledged Jey Uso and the two fist bumped. And yeah, I mean, I was going to say I don't really know where this storyline's going. I still think Jay's going to turn in Montreal on Sami Zayn. However, at the end of the show, something quite interesting happened. And Paul Heyman told Jimmy that that Roman Reigns didn't want to see either of the Usos in Montreal because he wanted them to watch it on TV at home. And I mean, we know that Jimmy can't enter Canada, and then there's contradicting information about whether Jay can or can't. So perhaps they are just pushing back the storyline, but I'm like, it's a risky move to do, because if you carry on pushing this after the Sami Zayn match, then there's increases the chance of fans wanting Sami Mania. If Jay turns on Sami at the Chamber, then there we are. The fans can hate on Jay, and we can set up the tag team match, and fans will probably not be opposed to it as much as they would be if Sami had no clear direction heading into Mania. But what do you think about it all, Clark?
I love the Jey Uso, the giving the knucks. That was golden. It was maybe my favorite moment of last night's SmackDown. I thought it was brilliant. Of course he did. And it makes sense. And I thought there's even more irony from there. The Shield-esque through the crowd entrance to help out his brother was funny to me. I don't know why. Not necessarily that it was totally like a Shield callback. I mean, he came down through the crowd just like the Shield. Thought that was kind of interesting because that used to be Roman's thing, and all of it with Jey Uso, I think, has been awesome. Even dating back to the right-hand man stuff, which really started the Bloodline, right? And so to complete that circle of the story too, I'm not sure I'm as worried about the crowd turning as I am like, just tell us this story, because it's actually I'm so locked in for it's been so long. I want him to complete the whole thing, and I hope it doesn't hurt Cody Rhodes challenging Roman Reigns, but if it has to, because like you said, if crowd gets behind Sami, the crowd gets behind Sami, and with the Jey Uso involvement, I don't know where you go. I mean, we could see almost anything, I think, coming out of Chamber. Not that there's not the easy way out, I would say, for, you have Jey screw Sami and you go that way, but if you don't, there's juice there, no question. And it's funny because my thoughts after last night were I actually feel a little bit bad for Jimmy, because it's been very clear since the beginning of the Bloodline storyline how much they've elevated Jey above his brother in a weird way. And they're twins, right? With not supposedly, with similar, if not the same, skill sets. And the work together is amazing. But Jey has oddly been throughout this storyline elevated slightly above Jimmy, and it started while Jimmy was hurt, coming off the triangle ladder match with Miz and Morrison, and was it the New Day at the Performance Center WrestleMania 36? That was when Jimmy got injured, right? And was off television. And then the Jey storyline starts upon Roman's return and everything. And that's the part that I'm fascinated by is, do we see Jey versus Jimmy at Mania? Because that might be, what if Jimmy goes, wait a minute, Jey, you're not more important than me?
Wow.
I don't know.
I'm definitely down to see that if that was the way they were going to go. And I think part of me thinks that perhaps that is the way that they might go, purely because here's something which I was thinking the other day, coming off last week's SmackDown actually. The Bloodline storyline, and specifically involving, the Usos and Sami Zayn, it's been the highlight of SmackDown now for months and months. And I worry by ending it before WrestleMania, are they actually possibly risking losing viewership or losing interest? So perhaps going that way could be interesting. Perhaps they do Sami Zayn and Jey Uso versus Solo Sikoa and Jimmy at Mania. Perhaps that's the way to bring Sami Zayn into it, because we know they need a plan for Sami at Mania, unless you want fans to turn on Cody, because we all know that is a very real risk. Well, not specifically turn on Cody, but turn on the idea of Cody versus Reigns, because we know that's a real risk when people want Sami Mania. But yeah, they've thrown a real spanner in the works if Jey Uso really doesn't screw over Sami Zayn next week. But I'm interested to see what happens. But what do you think, Kobe? What are your thoughts on, this entire situation?
This entire situation, and we're going to sound like a broken record, every one of us on this show. This is one of the most intricate and best told stories in a long time in wrestling in general. At the end of the day, we have no clue where this is going. And that is the best part of this. We kind of assumed there was going to be the turn at the Rumble, but nobody knew Jey Uso was walking out of the Bloodline. They are continuing to add elements and add aspects of this story to make it different, to make it intriguing, to make you want to watch the show and see what happens, and it is 100% succeeding. At the end of the day, I don't think so. Like, you have Sami Zayn acknowledging Jey Uso, unless Jay's going to instantly go back and be like, why'd you acknowledge me? You need to acknowledge the tribal chief, blah, blah, blah. I don't think there's a reason to have Jey Uso turn. I don't. If anything, if there is not a screw-up finish that does not involve Kevin Owens in Montreal, I would much rather have Solo Sikoa do it. Because Sikoa, but a lot of what Sami Zayn said in the promo was true. Once Sikoa was trying to learn or think for himself, Roman's like, no, you get to my side, type of thing. Like, there's Roman is losing control, and I think this has to dissolve the Bloodline, unless you're keeping a Roman Sikoa situation. To me, I think something has to this whole faction does have to be dissolved at the end of the day.
Now that you've said it like that, I really could see them doing it. My thought process has always been that once Reigns, goes on hiatus after WrestleMania, if that does indeed happen, because he deserves a break, then perhaps it would be Solo Sikoa as like the face of the bloodline while he's away, with the Usos alongside him. But now that you're saying this, it does make a lot. Sammy made some very, very good points last night, and if it makes this bloodline seem dumb if they don't actually listen to it. So a great point that you made there, Kobe. The one thing which I perhaps would add, which is the only issue with this theory, is what the plan would be for Kevin Owens at WrestleMania if this was indeed to happen. Because if Sammy were to, for example, team with Jey Uso to face off against perhaps Jimmy and Solo, or I mean, I think that's the way it would have to be if that was the case. I can't see everyone turn on Roman until post-Mania. Perhaps that's the Raw after Mania, where then Solo and Jimmy turn on him too. But there needs to be something bloodline related to Sammy at Mania, I think, certainly. And unless it's apart from Sammy and Kevin versus the Usos, or Sammy and Jey versus Jimmy and Solo, I can't think of a way you could do it really. But I think they're bucking themselves now in a tough situation, but it's a tough situation which we're all very, very intrigued by. And Anthony, I know you've been a very big fan of this storyline since the start of it. Mm-hmm. So let's go to you now. What are all your thoughts on it?
I mean, my honest opinion is I think Jey is going to turn on Sammy at Chamber. I think that's where the intention gets known. I mean, it's been rumored for so long of who the Usos will be facing at Mania. I truly don't believe this is going to be a repeat of 2014 with the Daniel Bryan thing. I said this on yesterday's show. It's a completely different scenario. Back then, the winner of the Rumble was Batista. They pushed him as a face. The crowd didn't want him as a face. Batista has said he didn't even want to be a face. And Bryan was screwed out of the world title multiple times leading up to it. This situation, Sammy hasn't been screwed out of the title yet. And the crowd's behind Cody. They're selling out his merch. They're chanting, "You deserve it," still. And I think there's such a great story there with the tie-in with Dusty. I don't think Cody's of any danger of a Sammy Mania running wild on his WrestleMania plans. I honestly don't. I totally could see, as far as the bloodline goes, I do think Roman is gone till at least SummerSlam after Mania. That's my honest opinion. I think he's gone for quite a while. I could see, if they wanted to continue the bloodline, what they could do, reminiscent of what they did in WWE with the NWO when the crowd got behind Hogan during the Rock match. Post-match, they came down to turn on Hogan. I could totally see the Usos and their brother Solo decimating Roman, just leaving him laying. That's the last you see Roman for months, and that gives you an instant return of him looking for revenge on his former bloodline members. I think that might be the logical move. I mean, I think that's the smart play, because you're not going to leave KO out of Mania. You're not going to leave Sammy, and that KO thing not wrapped up. There's got to be more to that. I do think KO returns at the Chamber. And I think a lot's going to happen in that main event, storyline wise, on top of what I think will probably be a pretty good match.
Oh, it absolutely would be. And I think if they do Sammy and Kevin versus the Usos, which I do agree is probably the most likely situation at this point, I think that I would have preferred it to be a bit more obvious that Jey's on the side of Sammy over this last couple of weeks. Maybe not go against Jimmy, but go against Roman. Like when Jimmy said, for example, last night on SmackDown, where Jimmy asked him, "Are you with the Bloodline?" Jey goes, "No, I'm not dealing with that anymore," or something like that. A definitive no. I'm with you, but I'm not with the Bloodline. So then Sammy really does believe that Jey's on his side for them the screw to really have him, because currently we're like kind of more edging towards he's probably on the Bloodline side, but we'll get to it. And I mean, flipping heck, if we have the Roman Reigns, the Bloodline turn on Roman Reigns, and a Jay White debut, the Raw After Mania, that could well be one of the best Raw After Manias, I mean, ever, to be honest. That would be absolutely fantastic if it were to happen.
I do kind of want to just say one thing about the whole what could happen after WrestleMania is, like, that's the thing. Unless you're gonna pull the route of, well, Jay, Jimmy, and Sikoa come out after Cody Rhodes wins, if this happens, and then Roman's kind of demanding the Bloodline to go ruin his moment, attack him, let's make a statement. The Bloodline runs the show. Unless they refuse to, and then the next night Roman goes on the tyrant of, you're either with me against me, and everyone, including Paul Heyman, walks out on him. That could be a way to end it, because I don't think there's no Bloodline without Roman Reigns at the end of the day.
I don't think you'd call it the Bloodline, but I mean, they're still, like, I mean, it's basically just the Usos and Solo Sikoa, but they're all, brothers.
They're all
I think.
Usos.
Yeah, I think the brothers
The
too. Like,
Usos.
I think that would be a great faction you could do on its own, to be honest, with the Usos talking for Solo.
The only issue that I would have with it personally, and just, I guess, while we're all throwing in our extra 2 cents, I'll throw mine in. I think that the only issue with breaking them up this early is, as we stated before, the ratings post Mania, because yes, Roman's going to take the time off, but I don't know that we're ready for a Roman babyface. I really liked the idea that Anthony just presented about, yes, you have a guaranteed big return, but are we really ready for a babyface Roman at SummerSlam? That's not that far out, right? I know we're all focused on Chamber and Mania and how great it is. SummerSlam's only in August, and I don't know how much time he'll have off, but logically that would be where you'd see the return. And I just don't know that we're quite ready for baby Roman after this run. And so I would personally, and this is just personal opinion, not like, I'm not trying to say what I want to happen, or well, I'm trying to say what I want to happen, not what I think will happen. Thank you. Sorry. Thinking out loud here for a second. But yeah, I think it would be great to see Roman Reigns retain his heel status, and then when he does go away for the break, still be in charge, still be the leader, still be dangerous, because we've done all this with the music, we've done all this with the presentation and everything, and I don't know how all of that adds up for a Roman Reigns babyface run. I don't know how that plays into the breakup of the Bloodline necessarily, but if they are going to do it, that's something that has to be considered, because that initial pop is huge, right, Anthony? And I was all in, but then I started really thinking about it, and I don't know if they can build upon that on the way back the way that they have for the last 2 years. I mean, that return, wreck everybody and leave with no fans, is iconic. It just is. And it's like the start of the Bloodline. It's the whole deal. And for it to end with, now he gets turned on by his own family and he's supposed to be the good guy again. Are we going to get the big dog back? I don't think so. That's where I'm like, there's got to be a loophole that we're missing here.
Well, here's the thing with it. If the rest of the Bloodline turns on Roman, does that necessarily make Roman a face, in the sense the Bloodline got sick and tired of the abuse and they're the faces that turned on the heel and got revenge, so that when Roman comes back, he's still a heel?
That if they can make it where the rest of the guys are faces, that makes a ton of sense.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
And let's move along.
Yeah.
No, I think it is a great point that you made, and I honestly, I don't often disagree with you, Clark, but here I do actually think that if the Bloodline turned on Roman Reigns, they're turning on the bad guy, the bad champion in WWE, the guy who's, all of this stuff. He's done these awful things over the last couple of years. I think they'd be the good guys. I think, yes, they're the ones turning on him, but I still think they'd be the good guys in the storyline.
If they can do that, yes. If they can do that, yes. My point was for the return pop.
Yeah.
Because the heel on a vengeance mission doesn't make a whole lot of sense. The babyface does. That was my only thought, right? The heel that's out for redemption, really? Like, the heel that's out just to cause harm because he's a bad person, I see that. But you're a tweener all of a sudden. Like, if you get your ass kicked by your whole family, that's a hard scenario to book where they're the baby faces ganging up on one person.
Well, a lot can change.
Who said they're ganging up?
A lot can change between now and SummerSlam too.
And I'd also push it, and I'd also give you this question: excluding the Sami storyline, hasn't Roman technically been a tweener for the past 6 months, Clark?
I would say maybe, but could you give me a heel that he's faced if you're going to call him a tweener? Like,
no,
someone
that's
that you,
true, but I mean
that you would say that you would consider, right? Now, I would say tweener in agreement with you, tweener because his heel work is so good. But I don't think he's on that anti-hero babyface pedestal yet quite. Even I'm not even sure Seth Rollins is ready for that, and I'm not even trying to open up a can of worms there. But personally, right, I'm not sure. I don't see Seth Rollins as a babyface. I see him as the mini Joker, and it's great. But he's not a true babyface other than the chant. Right? I mean, as great as Seth is bell to bell, I love he's entertaining every single freaking week. I think Seth Rollins is outstanding. Is he a babyface? I don't think so. Personally, like, it's not that I don't want to root for him, right? Like, it's not sports. It's wrestling. And I want to see Seth Rollins be the D-bag he can be, for lack of a better term. He's
the D-bag you love.
Yeah. It's like I'm fine with it, but on the opposite theory, I don't know how much it does for either one, and not to even change the subject on that, but just when it comes to the babyface heel thing, that's where I get worried on the Roman situation. Is he got lost in the sauce for 5 years. We saw it as the big dog, main eventing Manias, in a position where he should be as over as anybody in the business, and he hasn't been until now. He has been now for a while, for a dang long while too. He's been as over as anybody, but I think primarily as a heel. Yes, we can call him a tweener. I think because of how it's easy to, a little bit like Triple H when he was when he went through that kind of phase early in his career. Mm-hmm. But at this stage, heel is the move for Roman Reigns.
In all fairness, the Bloodline is a once in a career situation for everybody involved in this. Like, if you're going to look at highlights of their careers when it's done, the Bloodline is probably the peak for most of the people in this group, in all honesty. The other question is, who knows how many more years Roman's really going to wrestle? Is he going to go the route of his cousin The Rock and pursue Hollywood? This may be the swan song for Roman. We don't know. Nobody really knows other than Roman and people in WWE. But no one's going to be able to recapture what this group did for any of the members. Like, Roman's not going to. Roman will have success. Roman will probably have another world title reign. It's not going to be this. This is different. This is career defining.
Yeah, you made some great points there. And Kobe, do you have anything to add on top of this?
I think at the end of the day, both points are made great. At the end of the day, you're going to get a pop. But we can look at it as, where else is this happening in wrestling? At All Out, MJF wasn't getting booed when he returned. And I'm not going to say he's a tweener because of it, but he's not exactly getting he's not getting the reaction Roman Reigns got at the Royal Rumble. Roman Reigns is getting cheered. The final boss aura of his music hits. the people are going to cheer regardless. People cheered Brock for the 7+ years he was heel when he since 2012, or I guess 9 years, because he returned in 21 as a heel. He returned in 21 as a heel. At the end of the day, or he returned in 21 as a face because it was Farmer Brock. Sorry, that's my words. At the end of the day, you're never going to get a 100% heel Roman Reigns. You're never going to get 100% heel MJF. At the end of the day, we do not need to get the tribal chief back. He can be heel. He doesn't have to be the big dog. We also got to look at what's next. Say he loses. Say he takes time off. What is the money match outside of him getting his win back over Rollins, because he's never beaten Seth Rollins? That's a WrestleMania match probably in the future. But at the end of the day, what's at SummerSlam? Because are we really going to get a rematch? Is it going to be Jey Uso as a marquee match? Not the main event, because he's not the champion. But there's no reason to put him at the top of the division anymore. So I think there's many ways to look at it.
Yeah.
And, I mean, you can analyze this for days, hours,
100%.
and
Yeah.
and
I think as well, I think Solo versus Reigns, if Reigns was to come back, right, I think you'd do it as, he gets that big, obviously he'll get the return pop, it'll happen, but they did it perfectly with MJF, where they might get that pop, but then Reigns basically comes out and cuts the promo the next night.
Yeah.
I'd keep Heyman with him, because I don't know if there's a reason, especially with Heyman's sided with Reigns on everything, and it's often been a bit sly to the Usos and everyone else involved. I think then Heyman and Reigns just basically make sure it's very clear that they're not on the side of the fans. At that point then, I think you could do Solo versus Reigns at SummerSlam and have a real star-making performance for Reigns, or even maybe build to that at Survivor Series or something, where perhaps you start with Reigns versus Jey, Reigns versus Jimmy, then Reigns versus Solo. I think there's a few things you could do.
I think Jey's the money one, honestly, because of the history that they have and how Jey got elevated with that feud with Roman. I mean, as far as Heyman goes, I could totally see them if they want to keep Paul on TV, you put him with the Uso new bloodline, whatever we want to call it, and then you can do a situation when Roman returns. Heyman turns on them, and the argument's going, you think I was with you? I'm with the tribal chief. I was only there to monitor what was going on, and I was reporting back to Roman the entire time. I think you could do stuff with that, and I think Jey would be a better match with Roman. Honestly, I don't think Solo has it in him to have that type of match, at least not right now.
Yeah, great point there. There's a lot of things that could happen with the Bloodline storyline, which is exactly why we've loved it all along. We've loved it for months and months, and let's just hope they don't mess it up now in what could be the final stretch. And we're speculating down the line right now about SummerSlam onwards, what happens with the Bloodline. But right now, it's down to who will Jey side with? Roman, Sami. We'll probably find out in the chamber next week. And it's probably going to be Roman in my personal opinion, but we cannot wait to see what happens. Now, that's pretty much bringing us to the end of today's show, guys. It's been an absolute banger of a show. We've got a lot to think about coming out of the show. Is Jay White WWE bound? Is Jey Uso turning on Sami Zayn? And more. We didn't get to the Intercontinental title stuff, but we'll get to that on tomorrow's show instead. But thank you guys for joining. Thank you, Kobe, Clark, and Anthony for joining me here today. And thank you to everybody who has watched the show. Please leave a thumbs up and please leave a thumbs up and comment because the comments really, really do help us. We'll be back here same time tomorrow. So we'll see you guys then. Thank you for tuning in.
See you in a couple days.